The massive warship cut through space like a knife through soft flesh. Captain Vex stood on the bridge, his dark purple skin gleaming under the red lights. His 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. Behind him, rows of Krell warriors prepared their weapons. Each warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick muscle and bone that could crush steel. "Target in sight, Captain," reported Lieutenant Kane from his station. The view screen showed a small blue planet ahead. Gentle clouds swirled around its surface. 3 small moons orbited peacefully nearby. Vex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Another garden world. Look how soft it appears. No storms, no fire, no death hanging in the air." He turned to face his crew. "The creatures living there will surrender quickly, just like all the others." The planet belonged to the Netheri, a species of bird-like beings who had built beautiful cities of crystal and light. For 300 years they had lived in peace. Their world had mild weather, clean water, and abundant food. They had never known real hardship. "Sir, we are receiving transmission from the planet's surface," Kane reported. "Put it through," Vex ordered. A tall, graceful Nethari appeared on the screen. Its feathers were silver and blue, and its large eyes held fear. "Great ones from the stars." It spoke in a trembling voice. "We welcome you to our world. We offer friendship and trade." Vex laughed, a deep rumbling sound that made his warriors smile. "We do not trade with prey. You have one choice. Surrender your world to the Krell Dominion or watch it burn." The Netheri's feathers puffed up in terror. "Please, mighty ones. We have done nothing wrong. Our people are peaceful. We have art, music, knowledge to share. You are weak," Vex replied. "That is wrong enough." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their capital city. One shot. Make it visible from orbit." The beam lanced down from space, turning sand into glass and buildings into dust. A perfect circle of destruction appeared on the planet's surface. Within minutes, surrender messages flooded their communication systems. Vex nodded with satisfaction. "Mark another victory for the Dominion. Prepare landing parties. We will take what we need and leave a garrison behind." As the shuttle carried him to the planet's surface, Vex thought about his home world of Ketra. He remembered the daily battles just to survive. Ketra had gravity 3 times stronger than most worlds. The air itself was poison to weaker species. Massive storms of acid rain swept across the continents every season. The creatures that lived there made nightmares seem gentle. The Krell had been forged in that hellish environment. Every day meant fighting giant predators with claws like swords. Every night meant hiding from flying hunters that could smell fear. Food was scarce and always had to be taken by force. Only the strongest survived to have children. Only the smartest learned to make weapons and tools. Generation after generation, Ketra had killed the weak and trained the survivors. The Krell who lived were faster, stronger, and tougher than any other species in the galaxy. They could survive in conditions that would kill others in minutes. Their bones were dense as stone. Their muscles could lift crushing weights. Their minds could handle pain and fear that would break other creatures. The shuttle landed in the Netheri capital. Vex stepped out and breathed the sweet, clean air. Everything around him seemed fragile and soft. The buildings were made of delicate crystal that sparkled in the gentle sunlight. Gardens full of colorful flowers lined the streets. Small streams of clear water ran between the walkways. A group of Nethari waited nearby, their heads bowed in submission. They were beautiful creatures, but Vex could see how weak they were. Their bones were hollow like ancient earth birds. Their movements were graceful but held no power. They had never known real hardship or real danger. "Where are your warriors?" Vex asked the lead Nethari. "We have no warriors, Great One," it replied. "We have never needed them. Our world is peaceful." Vex shook his head in disbelief. How did your species survive? What did you fight to claim this world? The Netheri looked confused. Fight? We did not fight anyone. Our ancestors evolved here over millions of years. The planet provided everything we needed. This was always the same story. Every garden world they conquered told the same tale. Soft creatures living on soft worlds, never tested by real danger. They built pretty cities and made art and music, but they had no strength. They were like flowers, beautiful but helpless when the storm came. Vex walked through the Crystal City with his escort of warriors. Everywhere he looked, he saw signs of weakness. The Netheri had built their homes from materials that could not stop even simple weapons. Their food was grown in open gardens that any predator could raid. Their young played in the streets without guards or protection. "Captain," called Major Roth, one of his senior officers. "The planetary survey is complete. No strategic resources worth mining. The population is approximately 50 million. They have basic technology but no weapons production." "Standard occupation protocol then," Vex replied. "Leave 2 squadrons to maintain order. Take a tribute of their art and knowledge. Mark the world as conquered territory." As they prepared to leave, Vex stood on a crystal balcony overlooking the city. Below him, the Netheri went about their daily lives under the watchful eyes of Krell guards. They seemed almost relieved that the conquest was over. They had surrendered so quickly that very few had died. This was how it always went. The Krell were the only true Deathworlders in the galaxy. They were the only species tough enough to survive on a world that actively tried to kill them. Every other species they had met came from garden worlds like this one. Soft creatures with soft lives, building soft civilizations. The galaxy was full of beautiful worlds with perfect weather and gentle creatures. But only one world had produced real warriors. Only Ketra had forged its children in fire and pain and death. That was why the Krell ruled wherever they chose to go. That was why no one could stand against them. Lieutenant Kane approached with the final reports. "Sir, the fleet is ready to depart. Admiral Thok is requesting our next target." Vex took one last look at the Crystal City. "Tell the Admiral we are ready for whatever weak world he chooses next. They are all the same in the end." The Krell shuttle lifted off into the peaceful sky, leaving behind another conquered world. In space, their fleet turned toward the next system on their list. Somewhere out there, more garden worlds waited with more weak creatures to be ruled. Admiral Thok sat in his command chair aboard the massive dreadnought Worldbreaker. The ship was 10 times larger than any Krell vessel before it. Its black hull was covered in weapon ports and armor plating thick enough to stop asteroid impacts. This was the pride of the Krell fleet, built to conquer entire star systems. "Admiral," called Commander Rack from the communications station. "We are receiving an unusual signal from Sector 779. Thok turned his massive head toward the commander. His scars told the story of 50 years of conquest across the galaxy. "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be a primitive radio transmission, sir. Very basic technology. The signal is coming from an unexplored system in the outer spiral arm." Thok stood up from his chair. At nearly 9 feet tall, he was large even for a Krell. "Show me the source." The main screen lit up with a star map. A small yellow star appeared, surrounded by several planets. The third planet from the star pulsed with a weak signal indicator. "Long-range sensors show the planet is mostly water," Rack continued. "Single large moon. The atmosphere appears breathable for most species. Temperature range suggests a garden world." "Another soft world then," Thok said with disappointment. "What makes this one special enough to report to me?" "The signals, sir. They have been broadcasting for over 100 standard years. Music, entertainment, news broadcasts, but also military communications and weapon test data." Thok raised an eyebrow. "Weapons? On a garden world?" Yes, sir. The transmission suggests they have global wars, nuclear weapons, and spaceflight capability. They call themselves humans and their world Earth. This was interesting. Most garden world species were peaceful. They rarely developed serious weapons because they had no real enemies. War was something that happened on Deathworlds where species fought for survival. Bring up the planet scan, Thok ordered. The screen showed a blue and green world with white clouds. It looked pleasant and mild. The gravity readings were standard. The atmosphere was rich in oxygen. The temperature was comfortable. By every measure, this was just another garden world. Sir, said Science Officer Mull, there is something odd about this planet. The long-range biological scans show an unusual number of extinct species. The current dominant species appears to have survived several mass extinction events. Extinction events? Thok asked. Yes, sir. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages. This planet has experienced major disasters that should have wiped out all life multiple times. Yet these humans not only survived, but became the dominant species. Thok studied the data with growing interest. How many other intelligent species share the planet? None, sir. The humans appear to be the only intelligent life form. They eliminated or outlasted all competition. This was very unusual. Most garden worlds supported multiple intelligent species who learned to live together in peace. Competition was rare because resources were abundant. The fact that only one species remained suggested either remarkable luck or remarkable strength. Show me their military transmissions, Thok commanded. The communications officer played several intercepted broadcasts. Thok listened to reports of human wars, weapon tests, and military training. These creatures seemed to fight constantly, even against their own kind. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over. They fight each other? Thok asked. Constantly, sir. Our analysis suggests they have been in a state of warfare for their entire recorded history. They fight over territory, resources, ideas, even religious beliefs. On a garden world with abundant resources? Yes, sir. It appears to be their nature. Thok found himself genuinely curious for the first time in years. Most conquests were routine. The Krell arrived, demonstrated their power, and accepted surrender. But this species might be different. Any creature that fought constantly and survived multiple extinction events might provide actual entertainment. Set course for this Earth. Thok ordered. I want to see these humans for myself. Sir, asked Commander Rack, should we prepare the standard conquest protocol? Yes, but modify it. Instead of one demonstration shot, prepare for multiple strikes. If these humans are truly warlike, they may not surrender immediately. Understood, sir. Estimated arrival time is 6 standard days. As the Worldbreaker changed course toward Earth, Thok studied the intercepted human transmissions. Their entertainment broadcasts showed creatures that looked small and fragile. They had no natural weapons like claws or fangs. Their bones appeared thin and their muscles weak. Yet their military broadcasts told of incredible destruction and violence. The humans seemed to be a contradiction. They looked like typical garden world prey, but they acted like predators. They lived on a soft world, but fought like warriors. They should have been peaceful and weak, but their history suggested otherwise. Commander Rack, Thok called. Have our intelligence teams analyze everything we know about human warfare. I want to understand how these creatures fight. Yes, sir. Should we prepare boarding teams for standard occupation? Prepare them, but keep them ready for actual combat. Something tells me these humans will not surrender as easily as the others. Over the next few days, Thok studied every piece of human information they could intercept. The more he learned, the more intrigued he became. These humans seemed to enjoy conflict. They created competitive sports that involved violence and injury. They told stories about war and heroes. They even fought for entertainment, most interesting. Of all, they seemed to thrive under pressure. When faced with disasters or invasions, they did not flee or surrender. They organized, adapted, and fought back. This was not typical Garden World behavior. "Admiral," reported Science Officer Mull on the final day of travel, "I have completed my analysis of human biology based on their medical transmissions. Report." "Sir, these humans are not what they appear to be. Their bone density is actually quite high. Their muscle fibers show unusual durability. Their cardiovascular system is designed for extreme endurance. Most importantly, their brains show remarkable stress resistance." What does that mean? It means they are built to survive conditions that would kill most Garden World species. They may look fragile, but they are actually quite robust. Thok smiled, showing his rows of sharp teeth. "Finally, a species that might provide real sport." The World Breaker dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Earth system. Immediately, their sensors detected dozens of human spacecraft. Most were small and primitive, but they were armed and moving to intercept the Krell fleet. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "we are being scanned by multiple human vessels. They appear to be analyzing our weapons and defenses." "Are they fleeing?" Thok asked. "No, sir. They are forming attack formations." For the first time in decades, Thok felt excitement about a conquest. These humans were not running away or begging for mercy. They were preparing to fight a fleet that could destroy their entire world. "Open communications," Thok ordered. "Let us see what these strange humans have to say." The communication screen flickered to life aboard the World Breaker. A human face appeared, calm and steady, despite facing the largest war fleet in Krell history. The human wore a blue uniform with silver markings. Her dark hair was pulled back in a military style. Her eyes showed no fear. "I am Admiral Torres of the Human Defense Coalition," she said in clear, measured tones. "Welcome to our solar system. We request peaceful diplomatic contact." Admiral Thok stared at the screen in surprise. This tiny creature was requesting diplomacy, while staring down weapons that could crack planets. Either she was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. "I am Admiral Thok of the Krell Dominion," he replied, letting his voice carry the weight of authority. "You face the might of the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Surrender your world now, and your people will be spared." Admiral Torres tilted her head slightly. "We appreciate your offer, Admiral Thok. However, we would prefer to discuss terms. Face to face. Perhaps you would join us for a formal meeting." Thok laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "You think to negotiate with prey species weapons pointed at your fragile ships?" "Our ships may be smaller," Torres replied calmly, "but we did not build them to be fragile. Would you care to test that assumption?" The boldness of this tiny human amazed Thok. She should be begging for mercy or offering immediate surrender. Instead, she seemed almost interested in the situation. This was not normal Garden World behavior. "Very well," Thok decided. "I will demonstrate Krell superiority before accepting your surrender. Prepare your strongest warriors for trials of combat." "Excellent," Torres said with what might have been a smile. "We accept your challenge. Shall we meet at the space station coordinates I am transmitting?" Within hours, both fleets had moved to a neutral position near Earth's moon. The humans had constructed a meeting station that looked surprisingly sturdy for such a peaceful species. Krell shuttles docked alongside, human vessels as representatives from both sides prepared for the trials. Thok entered the station with his best warriors. Each Krell stood over 8 feet tall and weighed nearly 400 pounds of solid muscle and bone. Their natural armor could stop most small weapons. Their claws could tear through steel plating. The humans waiting for them looked almost comically small in comparison. The tallest human barely reached Thok's chest. They wore simple clothes and carried no visible weapons. They should have been terrified. Instead, they were taking notes. "Fascinating bone structure," one human scientist was saying to another. "Look at the density of the muscle fiber. The leverage advantage of those arms is remarkable." "The claws appear to be retractable," replied his colleague. "And notice the redundant organ systems. This species is built for survival." Falk found their clinical interest unsettling. Prey species usually cowered or fled when faced with Krell warriors. These humans were studying them like specimens. "Let us begin the trials," Falk announced. "First, tests of strength." The Krell had brought their standard challenge equipment. Heavy weights that required enormous strength to lift. Crushing devices that tested grip power. Endurance machines that pushed warriors to their physical limits. Captain Vex stepped forward to demonstrate Krell superiority. He lifted weights that would crush most species. His forearms worked in perfect coordination, showing off decades of training and natural power. The Krell warriors cheered as he set new records. "Impressive," said Colonel Adams, the human military representative. "Our turn." The human who stepped forward was not the largest of their group. He looked ordinary, even small compared to the Krell. But when he approached the weight machine, something unexpected happened. He did not try to match Krell's strength. Instead, he studied the machine, adjusted his grip, and used leverage to move. Weights far heavier than his size should allow. When the crushing device was brought out, he did not try to overpower it. He endured the pressure, breathing steadily and maintaining focus even as the machine applied forces that should have broken his bones. "Your technique is interesting," Vex admitted grudgingly, "but technique cannot replace true strength." "Perhaps not," Adams replied, "but it can make strength more effective." The endurance tests proved even more disturbing to Krell expectations. The humans could not match raw Krell power, but they simply would not quit. When their bodies should have failed, they found ways to continue. When pain should have stopped them, they adapted and pushed through. Most unsettling was their attitude. The humans treated the trials like a learning experience. They asked questions about Krell training methods. They wanted to understand how Krell physiology worked. They seemed genuinely curious rather than defeated. "Next trial," Falk announced, growing frustrated. "Psychological endurance." The Krell brought out their fear inducers. Devices that triggered panic responses in most species. Simulation chambers that recreated the worst nightmares of civilized creatures. Pain tolerance tests that broke the will of garden world inhabitants. The humans approached these trials with the same calm interest they had shown earlier. They did not panic when faced with simulated predators. They did not break when subjected to psychological pressure. Most remarkably, they seemed to analyze the tests even while enduring them. "Interesting approach," commented Dr. Reeves, a human psychologist, while sitting in a chamber designed to trigger claustrophobic terror. "The frequency of the sound waves is clearly intended to stimulate fear responses. The lighting pattern probably triggers prey instincts." "Are you not afraid?" asked the Krell technician operating the device. "Of course I am," Reeves replied matter-of-factly. "Fear is a useful survival tool. But being afraid does not mean being controlled by fear. This was not how fear was supposed to work. Fear should paralyze. It should break the will and force surrender." These humans seemed to treat fear like any other piece of information to be processed and understood. The pain tolerance tests yielded similar results. The humans clearly felt pain. Their biological readings confirmed it. But they endured levels of discomfort that should have incapacitated them. More importantly, they remained mentally functional throughout the ordeal. "How do you do this?" Vex asked Colonel Adams after watching him complete a trial that had broken Krell prisoners. "Practice," Adams replied simply. "Our military training includes pain resistance, stress inoculation, and psychological conditioning. We learn to function despite adverse conditions. Your military trains for torture? Our military trains for survival. Sometimes that means functioning under extreme stress, injury, or psychological pressure. Vex found this deeply troubling. The Krell were strong because they were born strong. These humans seemed to deliberately make themselves stronger through training and preparation. They took their natural weaknesses and found ways to overcome them. The final test was meant to be the ultimate demonstration of Krell superiority. A combat simulation that recreated the hunting grounds of Ketra, virtual predators that had terrorized Krell children for millennia. Environmental hazards that killed the weak and trained the survivors. The humans entered the simulation with their usual calm confidence. They moved through the deadly environment not like predators, but like scientists. They observed, adapted, and overcame challenges through teamwork and intelligence rather than raw strength. When virtual monsters attacked, they did not rely on individual combat prowess. They worked together, using coordinated tactics to defeat enemies much larger and stronger than themselves. When environmental hazards threatened them, they found creative solutions rather than trying to overpower the danger. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "This is excellent training," Adams commented while dodging acid spits from a simulated Ketran death lizard. "We should set up something similar for our own forces." "You want to recreate our death world?" Vex asked in disbelief. "Why not?" "Controlled. Exposure to extreme conditions makes soldiers stronger and more adaptable." For the first time in his life, Vex began to question whether the Krell truly understood strength. Captain Vex found himself unable to sleep after the trials. The humans had not won every test, but they had not lost either. More disturbing was how they approached each challenge. Where the Krell used raw power, the humans used intelligence and adaptation. Where the Krell relied on individual strength, the humans worked as a team. He walked through the corridors of the space station, his mind churning with questions. In the observation deck, he found Colonel Adams standing alone, looking out at the blue planet below. "Colonel," Vex said, approaching carefully. "May I speak with you?" Adams turned and nodded. "Of course, Captain. Please call me David. What is troubling you?" "Your people," Vex began, then stopped. He had never asked such questions before. "How do you do it? How do you make weakness into strength?" David smiled. "We are not weak, Captain. We just use different kinds of strength, but you are small. You have no natural weapons. Your bones break easily. Your muscles are tiny compared to ours." "True," David agreed. "But tell me about your home world. What is Ketra like?" Vex described his birth planet. The crushing gravity, the poisonous air, the deadly storms. He told of the great predators that hunted in packs, their claws like swords, and their teeth like daggers. He spoke of the acid rains that could eat through metal, and the volcanic eruptions that turned day into night. "It sounds terrible," David said. "How do your people survive there?" "We are strong," Vex replied proudly. "We are built to endure what would kill others. Only the strongest survive to breed. Each generation is tougher than the last." "And Earth?" David asked. "What do your sensors tell you about our world?" Vex consulted his data pad. "Your world is pleasant, standard gravity, breathable atmosphere, moderate temperatures, abundant water and food sources, a garden world suitable for most species." David laughed, but not with mockery. "Captain, your sensors are reading the current conditions. They cannot see our history." "What do you mean?" "Let me tell you about Earth," David said, settling into a chair. "Our planet has tried to kill us more times than we can count. Ice ages that froze most of the world solid. Asteroid impacts that blocked out the sun for years. Volcanic eruptions that poisoned the air and covered continents in ash." Vex listened with growing amazement as David described Earth's violent past. Mass extinctions that wiped out entire ecosystems. Climate changes that happen so fast that most species could not adapt. Diseases and plagues that killed billions. But that is not all, David continued. Our planet is still trying to kill us. Earthquakes that can level cities. Hurricanes with winds that can tear apart buildings. Tornadoes that appear without warning. Floods, droughts, blizzards, and heat waves. Yet you call it a pleasant world, Vex said in confusion. Because to us it is home. We evolved there. We adapted to survive all of these things. What you see as pleasant conditions are actually just the brief calm periods between disasters. David pulled up images on his datapad. Pictures of human cities destroyed by earthquakes. Massive storms that covered half a continent. Volcanic eruptions that could be seen from space. This is why we train for pain and stress, David explained. This is why we work together as teams. On Earth, individual strength is not enough. The planet will kill the strongest person just as easily as the weakest. Survival requires cooperation, adaptation, and the ability to keep going when everything seems hopeless. Vex stared at the images in shock. These disasters ... They happen regularly, every year. Sometimes multiple times per year. Humans have learned to predict some of them, but not all. We build our cities to survive earthquakes. We create warning systems for storms. We stockpile food and medicine. For emergencies, you live in constant preparation for death? We live in constant preparation for survival, David corrected. There is a difference. David showed more images. Humans climbing mountains that could kill them with cold or thin air. Humans diving into oceans deep enough to crush their bodies. Humans exploring caves that could collapse at any moment. We do these things for recreation, David said, seeing Vex's amazement. We call them extreme sports. We voluntarily put ourselves in danger to test our limits and improve our skills. Why? Vex asked. Why seek out danger when your world already provides enough? Because the danger makes us stronger. Not just physically, but mentally. When we face controlled risks, we learn to handle real emergencies better. Vex thought about this. On Ketra, strength came from surviving what the planet threw at them. But humans actively sought out additional challenges beyond what their world provided. They made their training harder than their reality. Your trials today, Vex said slowly. You were not trying to match our strength. No, we were trying to understand it. We wanted to learn how you approach problems so we could improve our own methods. You learn from your enemies? We learn from everyone. Enemies, allies, neutral parties. Every species has something to teach us about survival and adaptation. David pulled up more data. Captain, do you know what the most dangerous creature on Earth is? Vex studied the biological scans. He saw massive predators with crushing jaws, flying hunters with razor claws, sea monsters with toxic stings. This one, he guessed, pointing to a great white shark. No, the most dangerous creature on Earth is humans. We eliminated our competition not through superior strength, but through superior adaptation. We learned to use tools, to work together, to change our environment instead of just enduring it. You killed all other intelligent species. Not killed. Outlasted. When the ice ages came, we learned to make fire and build shelters. When food became scarce, we learned to hunt in coordinated groups. When diseases spread, we developed medicine. Other intelligent species could not adapt fast enough. Vex felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. You are saying that humans are the ultimate survivors of a world that constantly tries to kill them. Now you understand, David said. We look weak compared to you because we use different survival strategies. But we have survived longer and more varied threats than most species ever face. Your endurance in the trials comes from millions of years of surviving disasters that would destroy entire civilizations. Your individual strength is impressive, Captain. But our collective resilience has been tested by our planet for far longer than the Krell have existed. Vex sat in silence, processing this information. Everything he thought he knew about strength and survival was being challenged. The Krell had always believed that individual power was the ultimate measure of a species. But these humans suggested that adaptation and cooperation might be even more important. "There is something else," David said quietly. "Something your scans probably did not detect." "What?" "Earth is not just a death world. It is a death world that taught us to thrive under stress. Most species that survive harsh conditions become specialized for those specific conditions. But Earth's threats were so varied that we had to become generalists. We learned to survive anything." David showed images of humans living in every environment on their planet. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, deep jungles, high mountains, isolated islands. "We are not just survivors," David said. "We are adaptive survivors. Give us any environment, any challenge, any threat, and we will find a way to not just survive, but to prosper." Vex looked out at the blue planet with new eyes. What he had seen as a soft garden world was actually a death world so subtle and varied that its dangers were invisible to casual observation. The humans had not just survived it, they had mastered it so completely that they made it look easy. For the first time in his life, Captain Vex wondered if the Krell might not be the strongest species in the galaxy after all. The alarms began blaring throughout the space station, just as Admiral Thawk was preparing to announce the results of the trials. Emergency lights flashed red as both Krell and human officers rushed to their stations. "What is the situation?" Thawk demanded, his 4 arms working quickly across the command console. "Sir," reported Commander Rack, "long-range sensors have detected a massive asteroid on collision course with the station. Impact in 47 minutes. Admiral Torres appeared on the communication screen, her face grim but calm. "Admiral Thawk, our sensors confirm the threat. The asteroid is approximately 2 kilometers wide and moving at extreme velocity. It appears to be a rogue object from the outer system." Thawk studied the tactical display. The asteroid was huge, fast and dense. A direct impact would destroy the station and everyone aboard. Evacuate immediately. Our ships can destroy the asteroid from safe distance. The explosion will shower debris across Earth's orbital space, Torres replied. Our colonies and defense platforms will be destroyed. Millions of lives are at risk. Then we retreat further and use heavier weapons, Thawk said. Simple solution. There is another option, Torres said quietly. We could board the asteroid and plant charges from within. A controlled explosion would break it into smaller pieces that would burn up in Earth's atmosphere. Thawk stared at her in disbelief. You suggest a boarding mission? To a rogue asteroid moving at crushing speed? The mission would be extremely dangerous, Torres admitted. The asteroid's rotation and speed make docking nearly impossible. The surface gravity is unpredictable. The interior could be unstable, but it is possible. It is suicide, Thawk declared. No sane commander would attempt such a mission. Perhaps, Torres said with a slight smile. But we are not entirely sane. Will you help us? Thawk looked around. The command center. His Krell officers waited for his decision. The logical choice was clear. Evacuate and destroy the asteroid from a safe distance. Let the humans deal with the consequences on their own world. But something made him pause. The past few days had challenged everything he believed about strength and survival. These humans had shown him that courage came in many forms. Perhaps it was time to learn what that meant. Captain Vex, Thawk called. Sir? Select a volunteer boarding team. We will assist the humans in this insane mission. The next 30 minutes were a blur of preparation. Human and Krell engineers worked together to design boarding pods that could survive the approach to the spinning asteroid. The pods were crude but functional, armored shells with basic life support and maneuvering thrusters. "The plan is simple," Colonel Adams explained to the mixed boarding team. "We dock on the asteroid's surface, drill down to the core, plant explosive charges, and evacuate before detonation." "Simple," muttered Captain Vex. "Nothing about this is simple." The boarding team consisted of 6 humans and 6 Krell. Each member carried specialized equipment: drilling tools, explosives, emergency supplies. They wore heavy suits designed to protect against the vacuum of space and the unpredictable conditions inside the asteroid. "Remember," Adams continued, "we work in pairs, human Krell teams. We watch each other's backs and compensate for each other's weaknesses." The approach to the asteroid was terrifying. The massive rock tumbled through space like a wounded animal, its surface scarred by impacts and covered in loose debris. The boarding pods struggled to match its rotation while avoiding the chunks of stone that spun off its surface. Vex found himself paired with Sergeant Miller, a human demolitions expert. As their pod approached the asteroid's surface, Vex could see the strain on Miller's face. The gravitational forces were crushing, the rotation was disorienting, and the landing site kept shifting. "There," Miller pointed to a relatively flat area. "We can set down near that ridge." The pod slammed into the asteroid's surface with bone-jarring force. Vex used his superior strength to help absorb the impact, while Miller worked the controls to secure their position. "Not bad for a Garden World species," Vex said, impressed by Miller's piloting skills. "Not bad for a Deathworld species," Miller replied, checking his equipment. "Ready to dig into this rock?" Working together, they began drilling into the asteroid's surface. Vex's strength powered the heavy drilling equipment, while Miller's technical knowledge guided their progress. The work was exhausting. The asteroid's rotation created strange gravitational effects that made every movement difficult. "Contact," Miller called through the communication system. "We're through the outer shell, beginning descent into the interior." Inside the asteroid, conditions were even more challenging. The passages were narrow and unstable. Loose rocks fell constantly from the ceiling. The air was full of dust that clogged their breathing systems. "This place is worse than Ketra," Vex muttered, using his claws to clear debris from their path. "Worse than the Mariana Trench," Miller agreed, referring to Earth's deepest ocean valley. "But we keep going." They worked deeper into the asteroid, following the planned route toward the core. Other teams reported similar progress, though 2 pods had been lost during the landing approach. The remaining teams pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that millions of lives depended on their success. "Core chamber located," came Adams' voice over the radio. "Beginning explosive placement." The core of the asteroid was a massive hollow, space filled with floating debris. The teams worked quickly to place charges at strategic points throughout the chamber. The explosives had to be positioned perfectly to break the asteroid into fragments small enough to burn up in Earth's atmosphere. "Charges armed," reported the human explosives expert. "We have 15 minutes to reach minimum safe distance." The evacuation was a nightmare. The teams had to navigate back through the unstable passages while the asteroid continued its deadly tumble through space. Several passages had collapsed, forcing them to find alternate routes. Vex and Miller became separated from the main group when a cave-in blocked their path. They found themselves alone in a narrow tunnel with no clear way out. "We are trapped," Vex said, examining the blocked passage. "Not trapped," Miller corrected. "Temporarily inconvenienced." He pulled out a small explosive device. "Stand back." The blast cleared the debris but also destabilized the entire tunnel. Rocks began falling all around them as the passage started. "Tio, collapse! Move!" Miller shouted. They ran through the crumbling tunnel, Vex using his strength to push aside falling rocks while Miller navigated the safest path. They reached the surface just as the final evacuation pod was preparing to launch. "Go," Adams called. Detonation in 3 minutes. The evacuation pods fled from the asteroid at maximum acceleration. Behind them, the massive rock continued its deadly approach toward Earth. The charges would either work perfectly or fail completely. There was no middle ground. Detonation in 10 seconds, came the announcement. The explosion was visible across half the solar system. The asteroid broke apart in a brilliant flash of light, its fragments spreading in all directions. Most of the debris would miss Earth entirely. The pieces that did enter the atmosphere would burn up harmlessly, creating a spectacular meteor shower. Mission successful, Torres announced. The threat has been eliminated. Back aboard the space station, the boarding teams were treated as heroes. But Admiral Thok was more interested in what he had learned about cooperation and courage. "Captain Vex," he said privately, "what did you think of working with the humans?" "They are not what I expected," Vex replied. "They are strong in ways I never understood. Their courage is different from ours, but it is real. And what did you learn about strength?" Vex thought carefully before answering. "I learned that true strength is not just about surviving. It is about choosing to help others survive, even when the choice is dangerous." Admiral Thok nodded slowly. "Perhaps the Krell have been thinking too small. We focused on dominating the weak instead of working with the strong. What do you propose? An alliance, the Deathworld Alliance. Krell strength and human adaptability working together. We could explore regions of space that neither species could handle alone." The formal alliance was signed within a week. The galaxy watched in amazement as 2 apex predator species chose cooperation over conquest. The Krell provided raw power and individual combat skills. The humans provided tactical flexibility and technological innovation. Together, they began planning expeditions to worlds so hostile that neither species would have attempted them alone. Desert worlds where the sand could melt steel. Ocean worlds where the pressure could crush starships. Worlds orbiting dying stars where radiation levels were lethal to most life forms. "The galaxy is full of wonders," Admiral Torres said during the alliance ceremony. "But the greatest wonders are found in the most dangerous places. Then we shall find them together." Admiral Thok replied. As the joint fleets prepared for their first combined mission, Captain Vex stood with Sergeant Miller in the observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly in space, a blue jewel that had produced the most remarkable species either of them had ever encountered. "Your people never cease to amaze me," Vex said. "Your people are pretty amazing too," Miller replied. "I think we make a good team." Vex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Yes, we do."